Hello, Nikoleta people. Welcome to a quick pilot guide on the A350 slash Elenta kit. As so far, a lot of you have been already struggling, and it's not been the best. And I feel like you guys need this. I'm here, joined by Regs. Say hello.
Yeah.
He's the first officer. I needed him for this, so props to him. Anyway, this is just gonna explain how to fly the plane, what the controls are, etc., etc. Should be fun. Alright, anyway, so obviously when you hop in, you'd rather put on the parking brake and then click this little question mark thingy, and you can get the controls tab in case you ever forget them. And as long as you're at the gate parked, you would have the parking brake on, as if the first officer were to start the engines, the plane would start rolling. So yeah, Rex, can you get those engines on quickly? As you can see, I get notifications here by anything the first officer does. Right, so in a situation like this, where the engine is obviously on now, if I were to let go of the parking brake, it would start rolling. So that's why you keep it on. Alright, so now that the engines are all online, you would obviously get, well, first off you would have done boarding and then you would start the engines. You can now, since we don't have a tug yet, turn on the reversers, wait for them to spool up a bit, and then you would let go of the parking brake. Then to turn, you would use the arrow keys there, and B to brake slowly. And C is obviously to change camera here, should have went over that. You can't use your mouse to turn, just because it's not really how that works, it would cause issues. And yeah. So left and right arrows are to turn the wheel, obviously, and down arrow is to reset it to straight. Right, so now that you're here, you would usually turn on the parking brake over your ATC thingy, and you would then go. Which taxi is pretty straightforward, again, just arrow keys really. If you wanna, what I usually like to do is I just keep the throttle at 5% or like 6% and just use brakes, and that's that. Since you do need a certain amount of thrust to turn for this thing. Now, while you're taxiing, if you do want to be able to pan around and see everything around you, you can press L to switch between locked camera and unlocked. However, doing that also removes your control. So if the camera's unlocked, you wouldn't be able to actually control the control surfaces. Right, so now that you're on the runway, you would slow down, put your parking brake on, wait for your clearance. But before we take off, I would go over some things here quickly. One, the pitch is inverted on the A350 by default. If you want to switch it so it's not inverted, As of right now, as you can see, down is up and up is down. If you want to switch it to normal pitch, instead of inverted, you would press Y, and it would say pitch precise, and now up is up, down is down. If you want to switch the, if I turn here, as you can see the rudder moves with me, if you want to turn that off, you can press T, which makes the rudder manual only. And, hold on. There you go. Oh, there you go. That works then. Alright, so that's that. Right shift is to toggle the horizon, in case you don't want it on takeoff. And what else do I have to go off? E and Q are your rudder, obviously. And
Flaps.
Flaps, yeah, true. Thanks, Rose. Flaps are plus and minus, not on your numpad, just on your keyboard, plus and minus. As you can see, flaps go down here. Then they can go up as well. We'll do, for takeoff, I assume like you'd go either config 1 or 2, really just whatever you want. It's either 1 or 2. If you are in the air and need to brake as well, it's B. It will toggle the spoilers on its own. And pretty sure that is everything. Again, you gotta make sure you can see your cursor look like this, like an arrow. That means you're in control, and whenever you let go of right click, it will reset the camera. Another thing is you can press K to switch between keyboard control, which is obviously WASD now, or K again to switch back to mouse. For this we'll do mouse as it's more stable. Right, so now when you're actually going to be taken off, you would set your throttle to like 20%, let it spool up for a bit, take that parking brake off, whatever camera you want really. For this, yeah, and then you would go 50% or like 60, then just tug it. Now, while you're on the runway, you can use arrow keys to turn. As you can see right here, we're using arrow keys, but eventually you will have to switch to rudder, which you can also do using your cursor if you have rudder assist. At around 120, you can start taking off, just like that. After you maintain a positive rate, you can press G to take your gears up. Now, I should have probably explained this while we were on the ground, but you do want to remember that this A350 runs off of your internet speed and computer. If you ever feel like it rumbles or like shakes, that's either you're stressing the airframe or your graphics quality is too high. So for me, I usually like it on 7 instead of 10, or else it can rumble. Now that you're up to around 1,000 feet, you can start taking those flaps up. We'll take a little degree, like 4-degree turn here to the cruise pad. You can cruise in this, however, it is obviously not the best since it's a physics-based plane code. But yeah. After you take off, you would go 80% throttle as well, since turbo would actually make your nose start pitching up, and you don't want that. Now, this plane kit is by no means a CM32. It does follow what your cursor wants to do, but it isn't locked towards it. Like CM32 follows your cursor, this doesn't. It just uses it as an input technique, rather. So just keep that in mind. You're right that this does need practice. It's not going to be a CM32 thing where you just pick it up and oh, you're like an airline pilot now. So as said before, cruising on this is a bit weird because of physics, and eventually there will be an autopilot system, but for now you should try and work on your cruising abilities, as it is quite difficult. Alright, so now that we're coming up on cruise, you would be careful, as there are many things that can go wrong here. In fact, I can fail sometimes myself. So you just want to quickly align it, preferably no slash use the GPWS or radio altitude on the right there to your advantage. I do recommend airlines making the cruise path slightly long, as this is again pretty difficult for the pilot. This is by no means going to be a smooth landing on the cruise, so don't stress yourself. Now that we're on here, you would use the rudder to your advantage and just use the brakes, aka hold B for spoilers, as when you're in the air or above 40 knots, spoilers automatically deploy when you press B. Now, as you can see, we're on the cruise pad here and the plane is yelling at you. That's just because we're in the air and we're obviously at 0 knots, we're stalling. There's nothing really I can do about that other than like make some sort of button to just disable callouts, which I might do in a later update. And yeah, you just sit here and wait, I guess, for your airline shenanigans. Now, taking off of the cruise pad is also a pretty difficult task. You wanna absolutely full thrust, and you gotta just wait until it provides enough thrust to move. Now, slowly use your rudder here, and also your controls, rudder assist. I would recommend rudder assist for this, with some input from you as well. And you would just wait for 120 knots again. That is a cruise pad issue. That was a cruise pad issue. They desynced. Yikes. Yeah, just make sure your cruise pad is all in one level, so something like that doesn't happen. Now that you're off the cruise pad, it's kind of like a normal takeoff. Sometimes it might be glitchy. I don't know, it depends. You'd have to practice it. Now that you're off, you would go ahead and make your way over to the runway for your landing. Once again, as long as we're here in the air, we're using around 80% throttle. You only ever really use 100% if you're taking off, if you have to go around, or if you're about to stall, which preferably avoid doing that. Alright, so now that we're a pretty far distance away from the runway, and around 1,000 feet, we would start start making a turn into the runway here. Not as sharp of a bank as this, but I kind of shot, so. Right, so now that you're near in line, you would start putting your gears down and set flaps to config 1 or 2, depending on how far you are and what speed you are at, obviously. We're actually a little closer than I expected.
300. 200.
In a case like this, where you're coming at an angle, which you shouldn't be doing, you would use the rudder, obviously.
50.
Now, for landing, flaps do not affect anything
50,
as of right
40,
now.
30,
You want to use around 60%
20,
throttle is what I recommend.
10,
And
3
yeah.
times.
Now that you're on the ground, you put that throttle down, start braking. Use the rudder a bit. Second it gives you the braking, that means it found out that it's on the ground. And you would toggle the reverses. VESA's off at around something like that, then you would put in some throttle just to make it over to the taxiway exit. Now, braking you can try and adjust depending on how far your exit is. If at your airport the exit is pretty far away, I would recommend just turning on spoiler brakes, aka B, no reverses. If you want to go for some sort of realism, I'd assume reverses. Really just depends how far your exit is if you don't want to taxi on the runway. So now you would start making your exit off of the runway using arrow keys again, and you would put the flaps up. I feel like I didn't go over taxing too much, but you do require some speed, and that is why I do recommend 5% throttle. If you feel like you are losing, if you don't have enough speed for a turn, you would obviously throttle up accordingly. Coming at the gate here, you would throttle all the way down. Just get it to the end here, and parking brakes on. If it slides a little, that's just the wheels locking. Nothing to worry about there. So no, not the best. We're not exactly on the line perfectly, but it is what it is. As you can see, the first officer, or regs in this case, would turn off the engines. Again, question mark if you want to look at anything related to the controls, in case you ever want to remember them, etc, etc. Now, as you can see, engine 2 is now flying. There's no smoke coming from it or anything. The regs, you need that APU on, by the way. Yeah. Should probably say that without hydraulic pressure, so if the APU or engines are offline, you can't actually use the control surfaces. That's both engines are flying. Doing anything now wouldn't actually accelerate or anything. So just keep that in mind. I've seen a couple of clients that have already tried to fly the plane with the engines off, which was interesting. You can also press middle mouse button, by the way, if you want to reset the zoom here. Just like that. Comes to die at the end here, okay. And yeah, that's pretty much all for the pilot guide. Just remember that all of you airline owners, you should try and get your pilots to be more trained first before you let them fly the plane. Obviously, I would recommend setting a set group of pilots to fly the A350 or any Nikoleta plane for that matter, as they do need a certain amount of practice. It's not something like Scene 32 where you just hop in and consider yourself a pilot. No, it does take time. Do not expect yourself to be instantly like perfect at flying this thing. There will be mistakes no matter what, whether that's a pilot error or even an aircraft error for that matter. It is worth mentioning that this is still a new custom plane kit. There are bound to be issues, and we just gotta live with it. And yeah, if you ever need anything related to, or any inquiry rather, that is related to the A350 or any other product, you can feel free to open a ticket. The livery installation guide and aircraft installation guide are, or should be, in the description of this video as well if you need them. I wish you all safe flights, and hopefully can make some good memories with this aircraft. We'll let Regs dash the jetway quickly. Alright, yeah. Have safe flights. Remember to take it easy with this plane for the few days after the release. And yeah, should hopefully be everything. If there's anything that is uncovered on this, or you don't understand like a certain thing or can't do a certain thing in the A350, again, open a ticket or try and ask the head of pilots in your airline. Should be all for now. And yeah, there should be a series of videos in a playlist hopefully for any future updates that I feel like you guys should be taught. And yeah, have a good day. How do you start this? Okay. Hello, Nikoleta. Shut the f.
No, you gotta restart, you can't have that in. Alright, go. Restart.
Alright, as we come up on the cruise pad here, not the best approach, but you would try to line up quickly.
Too low, gear, too low.
Now, the callouts will absolutely destroy you. That was a... Oops. That was not meant to happen. Uh-oh, hold on. Okay, this bit's gonna be cut off. Jesus Christ, hold on, Rex.
Idiot. Wait, so I was gonna do, is it gonna come up with a bunch of warnings?
Oh my god.
Is it just gonna spam you with warnings when you get
Yeah, it's just gonna have to spam you for now. I might see if I can work around it.